that poison gas, some it killed right away, and some it affected their lungs and their body all that time. Some were never able to work again and what have you. But he passed away. In fact, we had a janaza for him here over at IEC. He passed away maybe around 20 years ago, something like that. But anyway, back to, we have certain choices. The choices that we have made, the historical choices that we have made so far have been the right choices. Historically right, 1, 2, 3, you can check them off. Not only who we made friends with, but who we was around. We mentioned Dr. Kaleem Siddiqui before. When we was in South Africa, and one of our friends over there is the richest man in Botswana, one of them. And he sent, the airline didn't come to pick us up. He said, okay. So he said, it's only a short distance away. He said, y'all wait at the airport. So he sent his own, he have a bush line airline. He have an airline too, you know, that fly close flights, you know. So he sent his airliner up to pick us up. And we flew back, all of us was on one plane. And we flew back to, for us to go to Gaborone from South Africa, just driving it takes about 4 hours, so it was a 45-minute flight, that's all, on one of the prop planes. But Dr. Kaleem Siddiqui was telling him, hey man, I'm tired, I don't know if I mentioned it, that speech that Dr. Kaleem Siddiqui was making, when he was making that speech, when he got up into it, hey man, he turned white and he rocked back and forth a couple of times, and the whole audience, you could hear, ooh, you know, I mean, they was, and he came out of it and he finished his talk. But everybody knew he had heart trouble. And when you get in that situation, the doctor in London told him, if you go down there, you're not going to come back alive. You know, because see, he was too old to get a new heart. Not too old, but you know, if you're on a dole welfare list, you're going to be way down at the end. So he wasn't going to get a new heart. And they had cut him open because he had a big, he was cut all the way down where they had opened him up already. You could see it on his body. The point is, those people purposely worked him to death. He didn't die, he just died. They worked him to death. And then, not only what he said in the lecture, but I think it was on the 16th, we came back on the 16th of April, Sister Bahia and I, and he got in the car and rode to the Johannesburg airport with us, and he was laying out stuff for me, and Bahia said, what is he talking about? I said, I don't know what he's talking about. Of course I know what he's talking about. Right? She just wanted to try to, you could hear, you know, what's going on. So he was technically handing, he did it on stage and he did it purposely. You know, he must have had a feeling he was going to be a temporary stay in this world. So he was laying it out, and he laid it out when we went back. 2 days later, he passed away on the 18th. They didn't even invite me. They had street prayer come and lead the prayer in London. They did this, that, and another. And then they took the Muslim parliament and tore it apart. They tore it apart. And you could see the setups and the different things that they was doing, they did it on purpose. Everything they did it on purpose. Okay, so you can see what you're going to be dealing with, you know, when you make a certain choice, and everything happened according to the choices we made. And if you're serious about those choices, they're going to be as serious about you as you are about doing what you're doing. And remember, they got all that stuff to use, and they use it. So as we said here, there's no Muslim agenda. There's no national preparation, no conference, no meeting. And then remember, our brothers still have access to all these people. And they're not doing it at all. We don't have access to them, right? Because they're not going to do that. They know what we're going to say. But they could, in a way, they could build up those young people so they would really, can you imagine now, millions of young, educated Muslims? And then if we take the Negro, like he mentioned a few things that give you a hint that, well, the sisters, they cover up because they know, okay. So he give you a hint, but he says, give the glory to God, not the praise to God. So he's might be hooked up with Christianity. It don't make a whole lot of difference. So they can compare. And that gives us a lot of things to focus on. Now, what are we talking about? We've been the same thing. Where do we start? Right here. We got a good start. It's not the stuff we're doing now. It's like you taste it's going to come. You can't say, I know this is going to happen. But from history, in our stages, you know, like from 1 to 35 years, that might have been the first stage of learning, you know. But then, hey, we go on, say from 1970, from 1 to 35, we call that stage 1. From 35 to 75, up to now, that's stage 2. That's stage 2. Now stage 3 is from 75 to 100. Okay, just like we had a feel about what we're doing now, all I'm saying is I can taste the stuff that I don't see any way that the stuff that we're working on cannot happen and on the level that we want it to happen on. So when we're starting here, there's nobody can stop us from turning 4481 into GHQ, General Headquarters. Nobody can do that. We already have the stuff written. All this stuff, all these notes, all this stuff for you. All we have to do is structure it and organize it. And then somebody edit it, right? Somebody edit and correct the computer or do the spelling check, I guess. And we off to the races. Imagine for this period of time, we're going to do things like As-Sabiqun, right? Well, so the past, you can take As-Sabiqun right now and just sit there with your mouth open. To me, that stuff is good. I don't know what it is to everybody else. Well, but now we're going into another arena. Nobody can stop us from doing that. They can't. There's nothing they can do. Yeah, that doesn't make any difference. What I'm saying is, from 75 to 100, that's stage 3. The way it feels compared to 1 and 2 is this is already done. It's just we got to express the time and live the time. So general headquarters, right there. The propaganda team, propaganda, advertisement, education training, the type of team and teamwork that we need to do this is coming. And all the people have to do is just be prepared for it, that's all. They have to be psychologically ready and hopeful and expectant that, so we're just reaching out. We're reaching out to the people, and all they have to be is, what do we have here? The dream team equal willingness and teachableness. Right? They have to be willing and teachable. They have to have, or they should have, a risk factor. They're willing to take a risk. Because everything is needed, we'll just teach them how to do it. We will, it's okay. Yeah. Do we have the credibility? Well, let's look around the world. Look at everybody in the political, in the social, in the historical arena, and where do we fit in the world today? Just think about it. Where do we fit in the world today? This sounds like bragging, but what university or what team is equal to us in forecasting what this group will do there, what they'll do here, and how it will come out in the final analysis? Where are they, right? Some people, they talk a good game, but you don't see them people going out to do, the lady is a nice lady, the new Jim Crow, but what the hell are they doing, right? All the stuff that's happening now, she was mentioning all of that. The same people talking about communism and the economy and the crash, they're right. Capitalism hits the fan, it's hit the fan a billion times, it's almost over, right? Yeah. And that stuff is true. But what platform, what program do they have? They don't have a program. Okay. That's not saying they're bad people, but if people were serious enough, they would eventually come to the conclusion, just like the Americans did, the 13 colonies, they would say, hey man, all of the Soul Speakers Bureau, we got to do something that people are waiting for us, right? They would eventually, somewhere in the near future or the near past, have came up with some functional platform. They would have to. They haven't did it. That's their business. Okay. So writers, editors, education, training, and all of that, upgraded, transform the whole environment, center of consciousness, focus, inspiration in our region. And remember, this for us, this is nothing new. The counter carbon defense, all that stuff, we've been writing about it, and it's just time. This is time when we implement that stuff, that's all. And for people saying, y'all do that, y'all not the I don't believe that, I never have believed that. I ain't never believed that. I don't believe in and people telling us what we're not qualified to do. I don't believe it. I never have believed it. In fact, if they want to get you busy sometimes, they'll tell you you can't do something. What? You know, I remember somebody was hinting years ago that you have to learn Arabic to be a good Muslim. So I said, well, it's not. I'll show you how to be a good Muslim without that. So I postponed maybe not to prove a point, but you don't have to be no Arab speaker. And then especially when we looked at the people that was learning Arabic, they went over and learned Arabic, and they came back here and they didn't do nothing, but stood up on the stage and pronounced it. And everybody, so nice. Well, they didn't do nothing. Not a one, not a single. In fact, if you wanted to guarantee that they didn't do nothing, get one that went over to school to Saudi Arabia, to Syria, wherever they went, they didn't come back. And our people from our center in Oakland, if they went to school over there, they married one of them and they didn't come back and they didn't do nothing in our community. Nothing. It was a death knell that killed them. Destroyed the people. They destroyed their common sense. So, to me, listening to brothers like the one we listen to is like, you know, during the middle of the game, they have halftime, and you go in the locker room and the coach be juicing you up. That's what that is. To me, it's like the coach at halftime. But one thing about the people is that when we listen to these things, we don't blame the people for being who they are. Like, the people are who they are. Their environment formed them. So, no matter how high we go, we always have to remember that first thing, number one, is you can't lose. When you work fi sabilillah, you can't lose. There's no loss in working fi sabilillah. So their rules about winning and losing and all of that, it semi-applies, but it don't apply to us the same way. Because if you go into business, you have loss and gain and all of that. But if you do something fi sabilillah, like, you already won. Like, our niyyah is to do, our intention is to do all of what we're talking about. So we're already home free. We get a reward for that. One reward, the reward for doing it, just wanting to do it. We got that covered already. That's what Allah and His Messenger said. That's right there, right? So it ain't no loss. Like you gonna lose something, and the loss will help you learn better. Well, the challenge helps you learn better. In fact, that's what we say. If you want to learn, challenge boss man, right? If you want to tussle, mess with boss man. He gonna school you on, hey, boss man gonna make sure you're trained, and if you make it through alive, you'll be all right. But you won't be no fraidy cat when it's all over. But you may be kind of mean and bitter, because like the brother say, people gonna turn away from you. They're gonna run away from you. And they do that. They almost, hey man, when I was in Oakland, I remember what was happening, say in 1970. In 1970, I was riding down the street, my partner was driving, we was in a limousine. Well, Broham, same thing. And police was arresting the guy, and they was beating him with the stick. I said, stop. And he didn't really want to stop, because, you know, they're good guys, but they don't want to bother the police. So the guy stopped, so I got out and asked the police, man, what y'all doing? So the police, all of them automatically, they're already there, they know me. And so They grabbed me, one on this side, one on the other, and they got me up against the car, and they hit me in the stomach and all of that. I said, I was in pretty good shape. I said, man, y'all gotta do better than that. That ain't nothing. And they snatched my hat off as a big hat and jumped up and down on the hat. You can't hurt no big hat by jumping on it. So they jumped up and down on it. But then they tear gassed the base. They was going to town. And so when they put me in the paddy wagon, with the Negro they was gonna arrest, for drunkenness. He was really drunk. And he looked at me and said, what the hell are you doing in here? He didn't know me. He had no idea. I wasn't mad at him. I didn't stop. I stopped because they was gonna brutalize him. But whether he recognized it or said thank you, that didn't have nothing to do with it as far as I was concerned. This is one of the levels that people have to reach, you know what I mean? They have to reach that level where I'm not doing this because of what the people are going to say or do. I'm doing it because it's right. And so, back to fi sabilillah, you can't lose when you're doing something for the sake of Allah. Now but things do come up like duty, accountability, honor, and what have you. Evolutionary motivation. So the world becomes your library, and it becomes you have to study the game that you're involved in. So you evolve, you get involved, you do, and then you study and you evolve, and one thing I like, the brother said, you have to get over yourself. That is technically is not about you. You know what I mean? And that's one of the things that, see, boss man, he don't mess with nobody else hardly, he just mess with me, mostly. So I'm supposed to say, poor Imam Musa, boss man always doing this, but no. That don't have nothing to do with it. See, everything boss man do, it's a training exercise. Learning to be alone. When I was a kid, 12 years old, 13, 14, 16,